When Joe Biden was campaigning to become your president, he said he would not sell any weapons to the Saudis. Then again, a couple of months ago, he said, we're going to stop selling weapons to the Saudis. But guess what Joe Biden's doing now? Selling weapons to the Saudis. But don't let that make you think that politics in general and Joe Biden specifically is untrustworthy. That would be really, 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 really cynical. Hello there, whoever you are, you're one of us now, and we love you. You're probably watching this because you want a different take on the news, you want to see what I think, and you all tell me what you think as well. So together with our collective consciousness, we can get a better perspective on reality, one closer to truth, and indeed truth, veracity versus deception is what we're discussing now. The United States has approved a $650 million sale of air-to-air missiles to Saudi Arabia. The Pentagon has announced in what would be the Biden administration's first major weapons deal with the Gulf Kingdom. Your first major weapons deal. You're a man at last. Oh, thank you. It's a proud day for all of us. In a statement on Thursday, the Pentagon said the US State Department approved the sale to help Riyadh counter current and future threats. There's current threats, and then there's future threats. We've got to counter all of them. Future threats, what a concept. Something might happen at some point in the future. What are you going to do? Got to have air-to-air missiles. We've seen an increase in cross-border attacks against Saudi Arabia over the past year, it added. Well, I think that's literally just one side of the story. Saudi AIM-120C missiles deployed from Saudi aircraft have been instrumental in intercepting these attacks that also put US forces at risk and over 70,000 US citizens in the kingdom at risk. Thank God there's no recent example of US citizens being put at risk as a result of a botched military evacuation. The sale does not require congressional approval. Lucky. But lawmakers can block the deal by passing a disapproval bill in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Unlikely. Saudi Arabia's critics were quick to slam the deal on Thursday. If you only could get some missiles to shoot down Saudi Arabian critics as well. Not literally, I'm not suggesting that that would actually happen, although there was that journalist. This has nothing to do with making the world a better place and everything to do with fueling our defence economy. What? Marianne Williamson said that. Marianne, when did you become so sceptical about the sale of missiles? These missiles are to help current and future threats. You like threats? What are you, a fan of threats? Are you a threat fan? America's economy should not be built around merchandising death. The more I hear from Marianne Williamson, the more I recognise she does not understand politics. As a candidate, Biden berated Saudi Arabia. This is the bit that bothers me, right? Because obviously, I don't agree with weapons and violence and all that kind of stuff. And then you will say, some people say in the comments, you don't seem to understand, Russell, this is just how the world works. And these kind of deals are what keep the economy going and what keep world peace going. Would you rather have one side, all of that? I know there are counter arguments. But one thing I will say particularly piques me is when people campaigning say, we're going to stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. Because the reason they say that is because they know it's wrong to do it and they know people don't want it. And then when they're in office, reiterating, they won't be, we're going to stop it. And then only to carry on doing a massive arms deal. The reason it bothers me is because it shows a few things. One, they know what the right thing to do is. They're willing to posture that they are willing to behave in that way in order to gain political power. And then ultimately they will revert to type. As well as bugging me, it kind of confirms something I've long felt, and you can go back and look at the videos, that the reason during the electoral campaign I wasn't enthusiastic about Joe Biden is not because, as I've said many times, I'm a particular fan of Donald Trump. I'm not into Donald Trump either. I know some of you are. Is because I said, Joe Biden, what are you going to whooped up and jumping around on cars for and waving flags about? You think this is going to be any different? Well, where have you been the last 50, 60 years? It's not going to be any different. They'll do the same things. There'll be some superficial differences and concessions, precisely the kind of concessions that do not affect the interests of the powerful. Anywhere that change and the interests of the powerful are at odds, the change will be dropped and eliminated. And this is the clear-cut example of this. It's a vivid and obvious one. And there will be loads of others if you had the journalistic bandwidth to look for them.
President Trump has not punished senior Saudi leaders. Would you?
Yes.
Would you? No.
And I would make it very clear, we were not going to, in fact, sell more weapons to them. We were going to, in fact, make them pay the price and make them, in fact, the pariah that they are.
You're a bloody pariah. Now, do you need any missiles or anything? You bloody pariah, sign there. And I'm going to write pariah on this contract for the weapons just to show you how strongly I disapprove. Thank you for the money. That would be quite helpful, actually.
There's very little social redeeming value in the present government in Saudi Arabia.
There's very little social value. Is there any value at all? No. Oh, yeah, no, monetary. There's monetary value in $650 million worth of missiles.
And I would also, as pointed out, I would end the subsidies that we have, end the sale of material to the Saudis.
I mean, he did call them the Saudis.
To the Saudis.
That's an indicator that he's not fully on track.
So they're going in and murdering children and they're murdering innocent people.
It's interesting, isn't it? Take the murder of women and children example here. Always a lovely example. Like, either they are doing that or were doing it, and let's say that they were doing it then are they not doing that anymore? Is Saudi Arabia not doing that? So it just shows you that there are like sort of rhetorical amplifications that occur when it's necessary. Then they're sort of dialed right down. And you think that's only foreign policy? Of course it isn't. That's every area of political life. Dial that down because we're going to make these decisions around prisons. Or dial that up because we're going to make this decision around drugs. Dial this down because we're going to make this kind of decision around lockdowns or whatever. The whole thing is about the management of information and behavioural control. There's no truth or integrity. Truth and integrity are only concepts that are brought up as things that you can say and pose and emulate because they know we value them. They know in themselves that these are valuable attributes, but they certainly have no place in the discourse, dialectic or transactional nature of contemporary government or geopolitics.
And so they have to be held accountable.
He must have thought he weren't going to be president because now he's got to back all this stuff up with you did say a few things about Saudi Arabia. Oh, really? What did I say? Well, you said that there's no value in them, that you're going to take them a task and to make it crystal clear. You did a weird pointy thing where you did a little duck beak with your hand about how much he was going to take Saudi Arabia into line and everything. Oh, we shouldn't have said that.
They're spending $110 billion purchasing military equipment and other things. If we don't sell it to them, they'll say, well, thank you very much, we'll buy it from Russia, or thank you very much, we'll buy it from China.
This is an interesting and important point, I think. You've got Joe Biden and Donald Trump both doing the same thing. In this instance, selling weapons to the Saudis. They're both wrong. Trump goes as far as to admit that he's wrong. Biden tries to sort of obfuscate and prevaricate and conceal the wrongness behind opaque language. Trump just goes, yeah, well, this is the way it is. And well, of the two options, that is preferable because you can say, well, at least this guy's being honest. Now, I know there'll be people, but check your biases first. They'll go, no, Joe Biden's not nearly as bad and Trump did things, and I'm aware of the particularly obvious things that Trump said and did that are pretty garish that people were not into at all. But when it comes down to this issue, you can see they're doing the same thing, but talking about it differently. So for me, as an idealist, a utopian, someone who thinks that the world could be better, could be beautiful, could improve, I think, well, surely the duty falls on the person that's actually lying and being opaque to go, we're actually not going to do that. We're not going to do it. It's going to hurt us financially and we're going to have to invest in different types of industry. We're going to have to change society entirely. We're going to have to change the way we look at economics. We're going to have to really be bold because we're going to put our morals first. We don't think it's right to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, so we're not going to do it. There's consequences to that. It's going to mean that Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and all the other dwarves are going to be pretty pissed off. So we're going to have to make some changes. We have to do that communally, collectively, together. Have you got a vision for how society could work? Do you think it needs to be centralised in this kind of way? These type of ideas need to be investigated and discussed, because if you're choosing between two people who sell arms, but one of them's quite funny and honest, well, there's a clear winner.
Let's find out what the problem is first, okay? I would not be in favor of stopping a country from spending $110 billion, which is an all-time record.
Donald Trump actually looks at it in terms of records.
Which is an all-time record.
That's a funny sort of approach to have on selling arms to Saudi Arabia. Instead of being ashamed of it, he's boasting about the record.
As to whether or not we should stop $110 billion from being spent in this country, knowing they have 4 or 5 alternatives, 2 very good alternatives, that would not be acceptable to me.
For those of you that like Trump, that's another example of his ease around communication and his unusual cadence and ability to communicate with people. If you dislike Trump, I would say that you have to acknowledge that what you dislike about Trump in this particular instance is that he's selling arms to Saudi Arabia. Joe Biden's selling arms to Saudi Arabia. So I guess you don't like Joe Biden either. A State Department spokesperson said the air-to-air missile sale is fully consistent with the administration's pledge. Well, it isn't, is it? Not if the pledge was, we are not going to sell any arms to Saudi Arabia. Right, I think I understand that. That's Saudi Arabia is a thing. Selling, a verb, I get it. Arms, we're not going to be doing that. All right, so that's one concept I've understood. Now here's the other one. We are selling some arms to Saudi Arabia. Well, no, there seems like there's an inconsistency. The inconsistency that I spot is around the selling and not selling. Even though the words are really similar in both of those two concepts, this not is fundamental as it negates the direction of arms and missiles from America to Saudi Arabia. So there's the inconsistency. If you need any help spotting others, we're all around. You can look in the comments. There's those people spot stuff I don't even see. Consistent with the administration's pledge to lead with diplomacy to end the conflict in Yemen, while also ensuring Saudi Arabia has the means to defend itself from Iranian-backed Houthi air attacks. I bet they said that bit at the end quietly, didn't they? I bet they went, we're going to lead with diplomacy. We're going to end the conflict in Yemen, while also ensuring that Saudi Arabia has the means to defend itself from Iranian-backed Houthi air attacks. What was that last bit you said? Nothing, just saying about how we're going to end the war in the Yemen and also like we're not going to arm Saudi Arabia. No, but at the end, you said something about air attacks. No, I don't know, I think you must have misheard that. This is from Open Secrets. Many may be aware that a major part of the defence industry's business model is selling arms to other countries. Well, that's all it is, isn't it? What else is it? There's selling them to your own country and then selling them to other countries. Don't remember in the Iraq War I, the original, which I always thought was the better war, both America and Britain had sold military equipment to the country, easy mistake to make, that they were at war with, hadn't they? And that's still, do you think it's really changed that significantly? Of course it hasn't. Selling other countries with the blessing of US Congress and State Department, often those arms are developed using taxpayer money. Just for an extra little kick up the old ball bag, a little stab of the old knife. How did you pay for the expensive process of developing these weapons? We didn't pay for it. Oh, God, what idiot did pay? What stupid mug paid for the weapons to be developed that we'd then be selling for your profit? You? Sorry, what? You paid for it. You paid for those weapons. Now, don't complain about it. Get on with your life. Since 2017, Saudi Arabia has become the second biggest buyer of US arms. Saudi Arabia also benefits from the influence wielded by major US arms manufacturers that would like to sell to them. Well, they feel they're like courted, like when a beautiful woman in a James Bond movie gets a fag out and like about 5-10 geezers go, I'm talking about the 70s and 80s, by the way. That's all people, but they've got missiles instead. Could we give you a missile? Sort of waving them under a sultan's snout. Just 4 of the biggest companies received 90% of the promised sales between 2009 and 2019. These 4, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, General Dynamics and Boeing. I've started to recognise them names now. It's happening so often. I sort of know them like as if they're members of the Seven Dwarfs. There's General Dynamics. Do you want some guns? There's Raytheon. Oh, I got a little missile for you, baby. I imagine Lockheed Martin, he's Doc. Little glasses, basically in charge. These general defence-related companies spend the most on lobbying, pouring over $10 million each into their policy influence efforts in 2020 alone. Policy influence efforts. What you're doing is just an effort to influence policy. We put a lot of effort in. Yeah, we do. But it's quite successful, actually, because you'll notice that we are selling arms to Saudi Arabia, even when the president said they weren't going to do that. So you judge for yourself whether these efforts are successful or not. The defence industry spent $216 million directly lobbying the federal government since the start of 2019. In addition to spending millions, the defence industry makes use of one of the most well-connected lobbying corps in Washington, D.C. 73% of the 663 lobbyists employed by defence companies in 2020 formerly worked for the federal government. What a coincidence. No other sector has a higher percentage of lobbyists who also worked in the government. They're interwoven and interconnected. It's only from a certain perspective that they even seem like separate entities. In a way, they're one entity. Like, of course, my liver and my kidneys and my spleen and all those other guys in there, they are essentially separate, but they are part of the anatomy of one system, in this case, me. But in that case, the military-industrial complex that makes pledges to sustain your compliance and then spends your money developing weapons, then sells those weapons, and you don't get to be involved in the profit. When it's time for development, can we have some money? When it's time for profit, Would you mind looking over there, please?
They have to be held accountable.
In my opinion, this story demonstrates perfectly the distinction between public rhetoric and propaganda and the actual behaviour and administration of governments. It's another example of how the difference between the two political parties is not significant enough, how the Democratic Party use rhetoric that they know we will find appealing before acting in a way that's in accordance with financial interests, exactly as we'd expect with a more conservative or right-wing president, politician or mindset, which leads me to my ultimate conclusion. There is not a significant enough difference between the two parties to get all heated up about anything, and we need viable, realistic, meaningful political alternatives that empower ordinary people and change the lived experience of most of us. But that's just what I think. What do you think about this story? What do you think I've missed? Do you think I'm being naive in some areas? Do you think I'm not being supportive enough of your particular preferred political persuasion? Let me know in the comments below. Give us a like, pass it around. If you enjoyed this video, there's no doubt you're going to love this little sauce pot. And if you need to get into the spiritual side of your being right now, and I think it's a good idea that you do, please subscribe to my other channel, Awakening with Russell Brand, where I talk about spiritual and well-being techniques. If you want to get on my mailing list, you should. I'll tell you what I'm reading, what I'm thinking, where I'm going. You can click right here to get on that mailing list. Stay free.